The galaxy had seen many strange worlds over the centuries, but Earth was different, its energy was different, its people were unpredictable, and the alien War Council had always been cautious when it came to dealing with humans. For decades, Earth remained off-limits, kept behind a silent red border, marked on every galactic map as a quarantine zone. No reason was ever given to the public, and most species simply followed orders, never asking why. But as Earth grew in technology and reached beyond its orbit, the Council could no longer ignore the planet's progress. Reports of human activity beyond their solar system began to surface. Trade signals were picked up, and even a few human exploration crafts brushed dangerously close to nearby colonies, which made the Council nervous. In a cold silver chamber deep inside the War Council Hall, the highest commanders of the galaxy gathered around a glowing table filled with shifting maps and data streams. The room was silent, except for the hum of machines and the clicking of claws against polished floors. Commander Thylos, with his narrow eyes and stiff shoulders, tapped the table twice and spoke with a cold edge. We must act now before the humans grow stronger. Their influence spreads faster than expected. They have already built outposts beyond their system, and no one knows how far they will go. The Council agreed on a minor plan at first. There was no need for full war, not yet. Instead, a scouting team was formed, small and swift, equipped with high-tech armor and stealth gear. Their mission was simple: gather information on Earth's biological defenses, study their weapons, and determine if the humans posed a real threat. The team landed silently near a small rural town in the northern part of the planet, choosing a quiet target away from military bases or cities. The plan was clean, fast, and quiet. What they didn't expect was the presence of Earth's strange furred creatures, small four-legged animals with sharp eyes, soft coats, and a stare that pierced right through even the thickest helmets. At first, the scouts ignored them, seeing no threat in such tiny beasts. One of the soldiers, named Jarn, bent down to scan a black and white one sitting on a wooden porch. The animal tilted its head, licked its paw, and suddenly, without warning, leapt forward with a speed that the scanners couldn't track. Jarn screamed as the claws sank into his arm. The pain shot through his nerves, despite the advanced protection. And before anyone could react, the creature vanished into the shadows. Silent like wind, his armor was torn across the forearm, and what shocked them even more was the wound itself. The claws had cut through multi-layered alloy, a material tested against plasma bursts, and it bled dark red. Jarn was pulled back into the ship immediately, and the team aborted the mission, leaving behind only confusion and growing fear. Back at the War Council, the medical teams analyzed the injuries with growing disbelief. The damage made no sense. The cuts were too precise, too deep. The creature was small, but the claws acted like surgical blades, and even more disturbing, the beast had shown awareness. It aimed for a weak spot, a joint not random but intelligent. The Council was split. Some believed it was a mistake, others said it was a trained attack, and some laughed, saying it was just bad luck. But the scans and reports proved something else, something no one wanted to say aloud. Earth's animals, especially these so-called cats, had potential for combat. The debate went on for hours and then days. Other scouts tried again with remote drones and long-distance observation, but what they saw only deepened the mystery. These creatures were not wild, they lived inside human homes, slept on couches, walked freely across control panels, and even aboard ships in training simulations. The humans fed them, talked to them, and often allowed them to sit on shoulders or laps, even during live operations. Some of these animals stayed beside military commanders during official meetings, not restrained, not caged, but trusted. Why would such dangerous creatures be so close to humans? Why did the humans allow them into critical systems unless they weren't pets at all, but part of the system itself? Slowly a theory formed, one that shook the Council from within. The humans had not only domesticated a naturally violent species, but might have turned them into allies, defenders, and perhaps even silent weapons of war. To test this fear, the Council authorized one more mission, this time to capture a specimen directly from an isolated Earth station located near the mountains. The operation was again quiet, surgical, A team of 5 entered the area during the mountains. The operation was again quiet surgical. A team of 5 at surgical. A team of 5 entered the area during the night using cloaking technology, but within minutes communication was lost. The signal flickered and vanished. All drones watching the mission picked up only one image before the blackout, a pair of glowing yellow eyes staring directly at the camera. From the dark followed by a flash and a long screeching sound like metal being torn by claws. 3 hours later, the rescue ship found the team unconscious lying in the snow. Their suits were shredded, and each one had multiple cuts across the face, arms and neck. None of the wounds were fatal, but all had the same story. The creature attacked as soon as they approached the building. That avoided their weapons. It moved through shadows and struck with purpose and precision. One soldier kept repeating the same sentence again and again. It knew we were coming. By now the council could no longer laugh or deny something about Earth was wrong, or perhaps more than wrong. It was terrifying. Earth's murder mittens, as the human soldiers jokingly called them, were not just animals. They were trained, coordinated, and possibly connected to the humans in a way that no other species understood. The question that now echoed through the war council halls was not just about whether Earth posed a threat, but whether they had already been preparing for war without saying a single word. As fear began to rise, one senior strategist finally whispered what others were afraid to admit. What if the humans never trained the cats? What if the cats trained the humans? The silence in the room was thick and heavy. The stars on the table map flickered dimly and far away. On Earth, one ginger-furred feline stretched lazily on the warm hood of a military rover, blinked slowly at the night sky above and yawned. As if knowing exactly what had just been said, panic began to spread slowly like a silent current across the alien war council halls. After the failed mission, the data spoke louder than any voice. Claws that could tear, advanced armor, eyes that could track cloaked movement, reflexes faster than sensors could record, and a level of precision that no random animal should have possessed. The reports kept coming, and each one told the same story. Earth's cats were not just animals. They were fast, strong, smart, and dangerous. But more than anything, they were everywhere. Every ship, every lab, every house, every control room had them. They slept on warm engines. They lay on top of high-security consoles. They moved between soldiers and scientists like they owned the place, and the humans allowed it, as if it were normal, as if it were a tradition. These murder mittens, as the humans proudly called them, were not locked away or hidden. They were free, and they moved with confidence, which made the council even more afraid. For the more they watched, the clearer it became that the cats were more than pets. They were part of Earth's system. A deep analysis was ordered across all recorded Earth transmissions, thousands of hours of human video. Logs, messages, and security footage were filtered through AI across different species, and what they saw left even the strongest council members speechless. They saw cats walking over important keyboards during military meetings without being stopped. They saw one kitten interrupt a general during a nuclear readiness test by climbing into his coat, and instead of being removed, the general simply smiled and continued talking with the kitten asleep on his chest. They saw soldiers adjusting their training patterns so the cats wouldn't be disturbed, as if these creatures had a higher rank. The investigators tried to find patterns. They looked for signs of mind control, psychic links, secret training, but nothing obvious appeared. There was no proof that humans taught them to attack or defend. There were no collars, no control chips, no visible orders, and yet these creatures responded like trained operatives. They moved to dark corners when strangers entered. They climbed into ventilation systems when alarms triggered. They stood between humans and approaching machines during tests, and sometimes they simply stared at guests without blinking until the guests became too uncomfortable to stay. One report from a scientific outpost on Earth's moon showed a cat named Midnight taking down a hostile drone by jumping from a suspended pipe onto the unit's core, disabling its function, and walking away without a scratch. The video became viral across galactic channels, and the public now began asking questions. Why are these creatures so violent, yet so calm? Why do humans let them roam without limits, and why do these creatures seem to understand the difference between friend and enemy? As fear grew in the outer colony's alien, citizens began requesting protection measures. They demanded their governments restrict travel to Earth-controlled space. They asked for defense systems against small, fast-moving biological units. Some even tried to import the creatures, hoping to train them for their own use. But those attempts ended in chaos and injury. One case reported a trade ship bringing home 3 Earth cats for observation within a day. The entire cargo bay had been shredded. 2 crew members suffered deep wounds, and one pilot refused to return to the ship, saying the cats looked at him like he was prey. The council was under pressure. The public wanted answers. The military wanted solutions, and the science division wanted permission to continue studying Earth species more directly. But memories of the failed missions held them back. Too many injuries, too much uncertainty, and a fear they could not explain. There was something unnatural about how normal the humans behaved while surrounded by such killers. The humans never seemed worried. In fact, they seemed proud, amused, even as if they had always known what these creatures were capable of. The War Council finally decided to send a diplomatic message, carefully worded not as a threat, but as an inquiry. They asked Earth for a formal explanation of these creatures and their role in human society. The message was sent across secure channels, and a reply came within an hour, short and simple and terrifying. In its confidence, the human representative responded with a calm tone and a faint smile on his face, saying, "They are just cats. We don't control them. They live with us, and sometimes they protect us. But mostly they do what they want. No one could believe it, for there was no strategy in the reply, no threat, no denial, and no plan, just the truth, or what seemed like truth. They do what they want." The phrase echoed across the chamber again and again. It was not the sentence of a conqueror or a military leader. It was something else, something deeper. The sound of someone who had learned to live with a force far older and more powerful than technology. In the weeks that followed, reports continued to grow. A group of alien scientists invited to Earth for peaceful exchange arrived at a desert research base, and within an hour, one of them had to be medically evacuated after being scratched in the face. When he tried to scan a sleeping cat, others refused to enter the base unless the cats were removed, which the humans declined, saying the cats had chosen that base, and if they left, the base would be empty again. Another system, a diplomatic envoy sent to a human space station, requested a private meeting, but the room assigned to them had 3 cats lying on the table already asleep. The humans did not move them, did not shoo them away. They simply waited, and the diplomats had no choice but to speak their words. While the cats slept, one of the cats woke halfway through, turned its head and stared directly at the speaker, who stuttered and lost his place in the speech. The humans never reacted. They simply waited in silence until the cat yawned, stretched, and walked out by. Now the Alien War Council had seen enough. The scouts had failed. The drones were useless. The experiments had gone wrong, and the cats were spreading fear without even trying. Something had to be done. A full response was being considered, but there was hesitation. Too many unknowns, too many failures, and a strange quiet feeling that maybe, just maybe, a direct attack might not end in victory, but in humiliation. Still, the council could not sit still forever. Something had to be tested. Something had to be done, for the galaxy could not remain under the shadow of a furry 4-legged mystery forever, and so a plan was prepared carefully, secretly, and with absolute caution. This time not just to observe or capture, but to act directly with force, but far away on Earth, inside a small naval command post. A black cat with one missing ear opened its eyes, looked up at the night sky, tilted its head slightly as if listening to something distant and unknown, and then slowly walked toward the edge of the compound, tail swaying with rhythm that matched the silent heartbeat of a war not yet declared, but already decided. The Alien War Council held their final closed meeting in total silence, with only the low hum of power systems in the walls and the flicker of red lights across the command table. Their faces looked tired, not from time but from fear, a fear they could no longer hide. Behind logic or excuses, they had tried scouting, they had tried surveillance, they had tried diplomacy, but nothing had worked the mystery of Earth's murder. Mittens had only deepened with every attempt, and now the Council was cornered. Either they act or they accept humiliation in front of the galaxy. New plan was called Operation Clawless Strike, and it was approved in one motion. The goal was to land small elite units in several key Earth locations and disable any feline presence using anti-biological weapons paired with advanced containment systems. There would be no negotiation, no warnings, no press releases, only clean, precise action. The idea was to prove dominance, to remind Earth that the galaxy still held power over rogue species and unpredictable animals. The first location chosen was Earth's northern continental military base, located in a cold forest region known for its isolation and high human presence. The plan was simple. The results were expected to be quick and successful, but what happened next changed everything. The ships descended at night, cloaked and silent. They bypassed human satellite tracking and landed 3 kilometers from the base. The units moved in coordinated silence with armor reinforced to resist claws, fangs, and even high velocity attacks. The soldiers were briefed not to engage humans unless absolutely necessary. Their target was clear. They were to locate, capture, and remove all feline units from the base and report success within 2 hours. What they found instead was not just resistance, but a silent kind of war, unlike anything they had prepared for. First team entered the outer wall and began scanning for heat signatures. There was no movement, no sign of cats, nothing on the sensors, only stillness. The building was quiet, no alarms, no guards, no visible activity, as if the place had been abandoned. They moved deeper. Scanning rooms, storage areas, dormitories, and command halls. Every corner was empty. No sound, no life. Not even a mouse until they reached the engine room, and then it began. One soldier opened the steel door and found a single cat sitting on top of the main reactor console, a gray-striped one with bright green eyes. It looked up slowly and stared without blinking. The soldier raised his scanner, but before he could activate it, the lights in the room flickered. Then the power shut down. All systems failed in a burst of sparks and static, and the darkness swallowed everything. What followed was chaos. The team's communication link broke, the doors locked, and from every shadow came the sounds of claws against metal, the kind of sound that echoed not in the ears but deep in the mind. Cameras from orbit caught only fragments, silent glimpses of movement in the dark, flashes of claws across helmet visors. Screens cut short, and then nothing. The feed died and never returned. Rescue was delayed because human security systems locked out foreign control access. All attempts to override were blocked by strange internal code fragments, tagged with paw print signatures. The Council could not understand how this was possible. How could a domestic species interfere with galactic technology unless they had already been integrated into human defense systems? Far deeper than anyone imagined. Meanwhile, other teams met similar fates in different regions. One group landed in a coastal research center and was found unconscious with their gear shredded and deep claw marks over critical tech, their weapons untouched as if taken apart while they slept. Another team entered a mountain satellite station and was attacked by what they described later as a coordinated ambush. Cats moving through vents, appearing in groups and using diversion tactics to separate the unit. 2 soldiers reported seeing one cat leap off a wall directly onto a drone's sensor core, disabling it instantly with a swipe, and disappearing into a shaft before they could react. One base returned no information at all, only a final voice message from a team leader whispering that they were surrounded by at least 12 cats, all staring, all silent, and they were not attacking, yet only watching, breathing, and waiting for something none of the soldiers knew. What broke them more, the fear of the claws, or the fear of what these creatures were capable of understanding? For it no longer seemed like instinct. It seemed like intelligence, patience, and even strategy. The Council gathered again, now shaken by failure and surrounded by questions. They had lost elite troops, not to human firepower or advanced weapons, but to creatures no larger than a helmet, and worse, their own soldiers now feared shadows scratched at imaginary itches and refused to remove their armor, even while sleeping. The psychological damage was deeper than any wound, and commanders were now suggesting that the mission had not just failed, it had backfired, because Earth now knew. The Council was willing to act, and yet had been stopped by something as simple and terrifying as fur and fangs. Inside Earth's orbit, cameras picked up strange images. Several alien ships found deep scratches on their hulls with no explanation. Others reported small oxygen leaks from cuts that should not have been possible in sealed systems. Earth denied involvement in all cases, saying they had sent no boarding parties and launched no probes. They said their ships remained at home and that anything else was simply accidents or natural. But everyone watching knew better, for the galaxy had seen the eyes in the dark and heard the screams behind. Static Earth remained quiet, no threats, no warnings. Just silence, and silence was more terrifying than fire. No one could understand why the cats would attack in some cases, but simply watch in others. Why they tore apart some tech, but spared others. Why they chose to let some soldiers live and marked others with scars across the face and chest that would never fade. No pattern, no explanation, and the lack of logic was what truly broke the courage of the invading forces. For nothing could be predicted, and no weakness could be found in the deep forests outside the failed northern base. A single cat now walked along a snowy path, slowly, its paw prints disappearing behind it in the soft wind. It stopped once, turned to look at the sky above where alien ships hovered in silent retreat, then continued walking, its eyes reflecting the soft glow of human satellites moving quietly above it. This was not just an animal. This was something else, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that too late. The War Council was no longer calm. It was no longer united. What began as a simple study of a primitive planet had now spiraled into a quiet nightmare. One after another, missions had failed, ships had been breached, elite soldiers had returned injured or broken or not returned at all, and the enemy was not a fleet or a weapon or even a government. It was something small, quiet, and everywhere, and no matter how hard the Council tried, they could not control it. The cats of Earth had become a shadow that stretched across every meeting and every debate, like a silent observer, waiting for them to speak the wrong word. Voices in the chamber grew louder. Some demanded a full assault. They shouted for fire and orbit strikes, for cleansing beams that would burn the infection off the face of the world. Others warned that such action might trigger retaliation, and worse, they feared that retaliation might not come in the form of missiles or troops, but in a way they could not predict, a way that already lived inside their ships and stations and bases. Fear had now become the real enemy. It crawled behind every eye and every thought and every whisper of fur in dark hallways. Still, the vote was passed. The war was declared. Not with pride, but with trembling hands. The fleet was assembled with more power than any attack force seen in a generation. Over 100 ships from 15 species, armed with energy cannons, planetary bombs, and anti-biological defenses. The commanders promised a clean mission, no mercy, no mistakes. The attack would be fast and final. The world would be brought to its knees, and Earth would be forced to explain the nature of its clawed defenders, or be reduced to silence. The ships launched at dawn. Their arrival was hidden behind clouds and static. Their scanners jammed human signals and blocked all communication. The first wave began descent toward Earth's most important command centers, targeting satellites, bases, and orbital relays. But something strange happened before they even touched the surface. The screens went dark, not all at once, not in a flash, but piece by piece, system by system, as if something was already there inside the controls, watching and waiting. The lead cruiser reported small alerts, first minor sensor glitches and internal pressure shifts. Nothing serious, nothing alarming. Then reports came of airlocks opening without orders, gravity turning off in sections, lights flickering, and most disturbingly, security footage showing tails and eyes slipping through vents like ghosts. One by one, crews reported seeing cats aboard their ships, cats that had not been transported, cats that were not supposed to be there, cats that moved with purpose. Panic spread faster. Then commands could be given. Soldiers locked themselves in weapon bays, others sealed off hallways and tried to flush the invaders out, but the cats had already spread through the ships. Not in numbers, but in skill, targeting power cores, control panels, oxygen lines, and communication relays. Every place that mattered was touched, every room that counted was marked. The soldiers fought back, but their weapons were too large, too slow, too loud, and the cats were silent, fast, and accurate. They attacked not to kill, but to disable, to frighten, to warning. One ship, an admiral, watched in horror as his navigation screen was covered in static, then cleared only to show a single live feed of his command deck, where a gray cat sat on his chair, staring straight into the camera. The screen went black again, and then the alarms began to scream. One after another, ship after ship, began to report loss of control systems and power falls. The fleet, which had come in pride and strength, now drifted like broken toys above. The Earth's orbit, fire spreading through hulls, smoke filling corridors, and the sound of claws echoing like thunder in the dark. Not all ships were destroyed. Some retreated, some limped away, their crews shaking and wounded. Physically and mentally, many would never return to active duty again, and those who did carried scars deeper than skin. They spoke of eyes that glowed in the dark, of footsteps that came from nowhere, of cold breath on their necks in sealed rooms, and of a silence that followed them even after escape on Earth. There were no explosions, no fire, no retaliation. Not a single missile was launched, not a single human soldier fired a shot. The world remained calm, as if nothing had happened, as if they had not just defeated the largest coordinated alien invasion in galactic history, with nothing but creatures that walked on four paws and refused to obey anyone. The hours that followed, the galactic network lit up with rumors and reports. Entire species began to panic. Colonies demanded updates. Space stations went on alert. Trade routes shifted to avoid Earth territory, and whispers grew louder that Earth was now protected by something no one understood, something not even humans fully controlled. A force that had chosen its place and was willing to fight for it. Without orders and without fear, one captured alien commander who survived and was later released gave only one comment when asked what happened inside his ship. He said they were not animals, they were not trained, they were something else. They watched us like we were mice, and we never even saw the trap close at. The War Council, the mood was broken. The high seats were empty, the lower chairs shaken. The leaders who had pushed for war now sat in silence, unwilling to speak, and those who had warned against it now offered no comfort. The galaxy had seen the truth, and the truth could not be forgotten. Earth was not just a world of humans, it was the home of something ancient, something fast, something sharp, something that walked through shadows and chose its own battles on a high hill under Earth's soft sky. A group of cats sat watching the stars above, tails swaying in rhythm, eyes blinking slow and thoughtful. Behind them, a human outpost stood, untouched, lights glowing softly in the night. No guards, no weapons, no fences. Just a small dish pointed to the stars, and the quiet hum of machines that worked without fear. And inside the building, a single console screen showed the word secure, followed by a small paw print that blinked once, then faded into silence. The War Council no longer looked like the powerful force it once was. The chamber that once echoed with commands and strategy now felt heavy and cold. Many of the seats were empty. Many voices had gone quiet. Some members had stepped down, while others simply disappeared, refusing to return after what they had seen in the failed invasion of Earth. The air was thick with silence, the kind that spoke louder than shouting, the kind that came when defeat was too large to deny and too strange to explain outside the chamber. The galaxy was changing. News had spread faster than light. Every network, every channel, every station was repeating the same images: ships drifting in orbit, systems disabled, soldiers returning with claw marks and eyes wide from fear. Earth was not just defended, it was protected by something the galaxy had never faced before. Something no species could copy or understand. Something that lived with humans not as weapons or servants, but as equals or perhaps even rulers. And that thought was the most difficult to accept. Civil Unrest began across several planets. Citizens no longer trusted the Council. Protests broke out asking why they had started a war against a planet that never threatened them, why they had lost to creatures no larger than a boot, and why the Council had tried to hide the truth. Alien families now refused to allow pets in homes, fearing they might be watched. Colonies near Earth-controlled space locked their borders. Some ships even began using cat detection systems, scanning every room before allowing crew members to board. Paranoia had become law, and fear had replaced order inside the Council Hall. A message arrived, simple, direct, and unencrypted. It came from Earth, not from a leader, not from a president or general, but from a department titled Galactic Exchange and Peacekeeping. The message was short and polite. It said, "We have no interest in war. We ask only to be left alone. Your forces were not attacked. They were warned. Your people were not harmed. They were spared. We control nothing. We order nothing. We live as we always have. What you faced was not our army. It was our neighbors, and they choose who to trust." There was no signature, no demand, no condition, only the weight of truth resting between every line. The Council read it again and again, hoping to find threat or trick or weakness, but there was nothing, only the quiet certainty that Earth had never declared war and yet had won one without lifting a single weapon. It was a reminder that some forces do not need orders to act, and that some allies do not wear uniforms or speak commands in response. The Council sent a formal statement to Earth, not one of surrender, but of withdrawal. It was carefully written to save face, but it admitted the failure. It offered no apology, only a recognition of Earth's independence and a commitment to avoid further interference. The message was sent across all galactic channels in the hope that the panic would calm, but it was already too late. The galaxy had changed forever, and Earth was now a name that carried weight. Fear and mystery on Earth. Life continued without pause. People worked, played, slept, and lived with no sign that they had just defeated the most powerful fleet in space history. News reports mentioned the events briefly, but most humans simply shrugged and carried on. They knew the truth in a way the rest of the galaxy could not, for they had always lived with the cats. They had always known their strange ways, their sudden mood swings, their quiet stares, and their surprising bursts of violence and affection. They had never needed to be told that the cats were special, because they had grown up with it, written into their lives. In one small town, a child sat on his porch playing with a string. A large orange cat watched from a distance, eyes half closed, tail flicking lazily. Nearby, a family gardened in peace, with two cats walking between the flowers, occasionally chasing insects. Above them, a satellite moved quietly through the sky, watching, listening, learning. And on the edge of the woods, where the trees grew tall and the shadows deeper, a black cat walked along an old stone path, its eyes glowing faintly as it passed a camera hidden in the leaves. The camera powered off the moment the cat looked at it and would not turn on again. In orbit, a damaged alien cruiser still floated quietly, half of its systems offline. The crew had refused to return to the surface and now waited for instructions that never came. The captain, a once proud commander, now sat in his private chamber, staring at a deep scar across the wall, a memory of claws moving faster than his eyes could follow. He no longer spoke in meetings, and at night he kept his doors locked, though no one else was on board. Back in the core of the galaxy, a small group of researchers reviewed every known case of feline interference. They documented over 1,000 incidents in the last cycle alone, from harmless scratches to full equipment failure. The patterns were unclear, the motives even more. So some believed the cats were guided by something older than logic, a force of instinct too complex to measure. Others believed Earth itself had developed a bond with them, a kind of mutual agreement to exist together and protect what mattered. The research ended with one sentence that no one could refute: the cats do not follow us, they do not fear us, they do not serve us, they walk beside us when they choose and turn away when they don't. They are not our pets, they are our equals, or perhaps something more. Council chambers were finally sealed for a time. With new members appointed and old systems reviewed, Earth was added to a protected list. Not because it needed protection, but because no one wanted to face it again. Trade offers were sent quietly, this time with respect and caution, and Earth responded with polite terms and clear limits. No more spying, no more missions, no more gains. The galaxy agreed without resistance, and so the war that never truly began came to an end, not with fire or surrender, but with understanding, the kind that does not need words or treaties, only time and memory across the stars. Earth remained quiet, calm, unbothered, a world with many stories, and one secret written in fur and claws and eyes that saw more than any scanner could ever read somewhere. Deep in the desert, under the red light of evening, a small group of cats sat in a circle on warm stone. The wind carried dust across the ground. The sky above stretched wide and quiet. The cats blinked once, turned their heads to the west, and then lay down side by side. Not in guard, not in fear, but in peace, for their work was done for now, and the galaxy had learned its lesson the hard way. The end.